Hey, all right, and welcome. Right, so basically, the main thing for this question has to do with the handling of cron jobs, right? And we're not going to talk much. We're going to dive straight into the implementation aspect of it, right? All right. So basically, if you're starting out, what you need here is the package itself, right? So you can basically check this out and just download it from your using your package manager of choice, right? So I think the name should be here. Cron. I can't find it. That's strange. It was missing. Okay. Invalid Express IO PG ready TS node. Okay, yeah, Node Cron. It's actually here. It's Node Cron as in Node Cron. Yeah, so it's actually part of development dependencies, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus more on how we can basically use it. I've actually went ahead to create the actual service for it, right? So in here you can basically see how we can use each of the attributes, right? So first off, it's actually nice to start up with the documentation, right? Say something like this, not cron. You should be able to see the package itself, right? So in here, they actually explained how you can make use of the entire cron syntax. It's actually built off of the cron tab, right? So if you know the cron tab before now, you should be able to use it without issues, right? So, but if you don't, you can basically use the allowed values here. So you basically know what each of them basically means. This is what I will explaining right now, right? So now, the very first thing we consider is to basically the time break. So by default, we have 6 stars. So we can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right. So each of the star means something different. So each of the asterisk means something different. So the first asterisk represents second. It's actually optional, right? So by default, you can actually your second is in the range 0 second to the 59th second, right? So the very second star is the minute. So this is actually required parameters. You have to specify it, but if you don't have a value for it, you can actually leave it as asterisk, right? So the default value for the minute is between 0 and 59, right? So now if you take a look at this, it might look very similar with the second as well. That's true because if you think about it, the 59th minute, basically the next thing that comes up is the 0th, basically the next 0th. So that's for the minute. And then you consider the hour. This is where it becomes very interesting. So the hour is basically starting from the 0th hour to the 23rd hour. So you already know that we have 24 hours in a day. So if you specify 0 here, you mean you are just like saying, oh, in the next 1 hour. That's what you mean, right? If you specify 1 here, you mean in the next 2 hours, right? If you specify 3, you mean in the next 4 hours, and so on and so forth. So 24th here, 23 here basically intends the 24th hour, like the last hour you basically have, right? So that's how it basically works, right? So you see basically how we apply them later on, right? So this is for the third asterisk. So we're moving now to the fourth asterisk, right? So the fourth asterisk is the day of the month. So think about it this way, right? We have lots of days in our calendar month, right? So basically, there's the 1, there's the 2, there's the 3, up to the 30, basically, right? So if, for example, you want Monday, right, per se, you need Monday. By default, Monday is 1, right? So you can basically like specify 1 for Monday, right? So if you need Tuesday, that's 2. You can specify 2 for Tuesday, and so on and so forth. So the reason it actually gets to like 31 is because roughly the number of days you have in one particular calendar month is the maximum you can basically have is 31. We're in the month of December right now, and you can see that we have the 31st day as the last day of the month, right? So this is basically like tells you that okay, for months that actually span to those days, okay, we can actually account for them. And meanwhile, you should be careful here. Not all months basically span up to the 31st. Some months like February, I think, basically just ends in 28th, right? So that means you basically have to be careful when you're working with the day of the month. All right, so quickly we go to the month itself. So the month is basically simple service planetary. Is between say January to December. January means one, February means two, and so on and so forth. Right. So you can actually specify this with their names as well if necessary. But I just prefer to use it with the actual values, right? And lastly, which is this last star, we have the day of the week. So this day of the week now, I've actually written a custom type for it to make it very easier, right? So 07 basically means Sunday, right? Monday means 1, Tuesday means 2, and so on. So to make it easier, in order not to worry about this 0 to 7 kind of weird stuff, you can just focus on the type, and the type basically ranges from Sunday all the way down to Saturday. Right, so basically with that out of the way, we have a proper understanding of how the asterisks work, and we'll be combining each of them later on. And meanwhile, if you have a particular stage marked as asterisk, that means you just assume all of that particular notion, refer to it as notion. For example, you use this asterisk as the day of the week. That means you're actually referencing all days of the week, right? So if you use asterisk for the month, you are referencing all the months in the year. If you use asterisk for the day of the month, you are referencing all days of the month. So and so on, right? So basically, you should know what asterisk basically means in this case, right? All right, so we'll go on to our custom functions. I've actually extracted it into a separate service, and then the very first one we have here is to run task every minute, right? So the way this works is we've already talked about it, that by default we have 6 stars, right? So let's count it. 1, okay, we have 1 here, we have 2 here, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So the 6 basically refers to the second, right? So now think about it. We want to track the current second, the current second, and then we want to run it for every minute, right? So why we are tracking the current second is we don't want to run a cron job now, right? So if, for example, the current timestamp now is 1 minute, for example, we're in the 1 minute 30 seconds, right? And we actually trigger our cron. We expect that cron to run in 2 minutes 30 seconds, not just 2 minutes 0 seconds. So that's why we have to keep track of the current second at all times, right? So this is how the flow works. And so basically, if you want to run your cron task every minute, you basically have to specify this asterisk. This way it becomes important. If you're running every minute, you just have to specify asterisk here, meaning every minute. That's the second star, right? Second star, denoting minute. Great. So basically we have that. And I've actually created this function such a way that you can actually inject into it any function you intend to run, so that by the end of this particular, at the start of this task, we can actually, if there's a function, we can really run the function asynchronously, right? So this is how the flow for the run task every minute is. We can go down to the other one, run task every X minutes. So I think I need to, increase the font size a little bit so you guys have a better clarity of this, right? So when you're running a task for every X minutes, there's a difference between running a task for every minute and running a task for every X minutes. Where this is important is, for example, you want to run a task in every 10 minutes. This is what you use, right? Not the first one. So you use this run task every X minutes. You just specify the time you need, which is 10, and then you pass in the function you want to run. So now think about it. Look at the way our cron specification is. Now, first of all, we know we are running every day of the week, every month, every day of the month, every hour. And then this is what we want to run. We actually run this at every minute. So we know that this basically means, you know, all the minutes, right? So when you divide this by, like specify the minutes you want to run here, it's going to run on those minutes specifically, right? On interval. So for example, you have a task stated for 1 minute 20 seconds, right? Or let's say 1 minute to be more precise. So we have a task scheduled for every 1 minute. So the next task will run in the next 2 minutes, right? So yes, exactly, and so on. So if, for example, you have a task set for every 10 minutes, right? So if it runs for the first 10 minutes, it's going to run in the next 10 minutes, which has to be in the 20th minute. So that's how the X minutes basically works. It's like you are doing it on interval. For example, you run one. If you specify like 1 minute time interval, it's going to run on the second one. If you specify 1 minute interval, it's going to run on the third, and so on and so forth, right? So that's how the run task every X minutes basically works, right? So you basically have to specify your minute right there, and it's going to run every minute on interval. Okay, great. So we have a different function to work on every X hours. If, for example, you intend to run your task or your job in, say, every 5 hours, this is what you use, right? So now we already know that the second asterisk has to do with the hour. This is all space, putting the hours in here. If you want to run in every 3 hours, put it here. Every 3 hours at the 0th minute, right? So that's how it works. It's very simple and straightforward. So we'll go over to the next one. Run at specific time, right? For example, I want to run my task at, say, 9:30. And then you specify some sort of day. Okay, I think that's the second function. So if, for example, you're running 9:30 every hour, I think. Okay, if you run 9:30 is mostly like it's hour based of the day. So if you want to run 9:30 every day, right? So you basically have to do it like this. So we already know you can pass in 9:30, and meanwhile what you're passing in needs to be in 24-hour format, right? So if, for example, you want for 2 p.m., you have to do maybe 2 p.m. 30 minutes, you have to do 14, right? If you want for 4 p.m., you have to do 16, and so on and so forth, right? So I'll take this back to what it was before. Okay, so now what we are doing here is to basically split the what's it called? The hour from the minute, right? So we have our hour, we have the minute. So you can split it that way, and then we have our specific time task, being able to say, oh, this is the minute running at this hour, in all days of the month, all months, and all days of the week. So basically we have a better clarity that this will always run 9:30 a.m. every day. So this task will run by default 9:30 a.m. every day if you don't actually specify a time value. Clear. Great. So we can actually move on to the next one. So this has to do with you want to run that's this same task but at a specific day, right? So we know that it's 9:30. We don't want to be running it every day. We just want to run it like every Mondays, right? So run this task 9:30 a.m. but every Monday. So the way you do it is you use a similar pattern, but then you have to specify your day, right? So your day basically is a type of the T day, the week that I already sent to you, the day of the week. So this is the type: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, all the way to Saturday. So that's pretty much understandable, right? So yeah, that's how that works in terms of you specifying a day. In order to reiterate, the use case for this is 9:30 a.m. at a specific day. Okay, so I want to run this task every Monday only at 9:30. So this is where I get to use this function. All right, so we go on. So here we are done. Mostly in all case scenarios, what you actually have the use case for are mainly this function: run task every minute, run task every X minutes, run tasks every X hours, run tasks at specific time, and run tasks at specific time for specific day, right? So these are the the core functions you'll be using or needing in your use cases. And yeah, so when you basically have all of this, we want to be able to stop all these tasks. And if you notice, when we actually defining our class, we set an instance for each of the functions we have. Like this every minute task, we actually assigning it to this, so that we can be able to stop it, later on if we want to. I'll actually demo this how this works, with an actual API, soon, right? So we can scroll down, and we can basically have all of this. So we want to stop. Is it the first one? Of course not. Yeah, this is the first. We want to stop every minute task. So first of all, we want to check if it basically contains a minute. So if it does contain, we want to stop it, and then we'll set it to undefined. So no more instances for the every minute task. So we are setting it to undefined. So we can actually, error this, show this success response of 200 cron stopped successfully. So if there is no instance for the every minute task, we can return this. Sorry, you don't already have like an active task for this particular job. Good. So the same thing applies for you trying to stop for for other jobs as well, like the S minutes task, S hours, specific time for specific day task. Good, great. So once you have all of these in place, right, so we can actually go on to playing around with the actual implementation, right? So we can go to the index, and now we have two core functions, right? So you might be surprised why I actually set the CronService up separately. I'm using a new instance of it. Yes, that's very important. You use a new instance for what you want to achieve. For example, I want to create some sort of blog cron. I'm setting it to a new instance. This is important because when you think about it, when you're stopping your job, you don't want to stop the job for the entire thing. You just want to stop it for this instance only. So that's why you basically have to set new instance for what you want to achieve, right? So this is for the blog cron. All right. So if I run this particular endpoint, we're going to first of all, I'm trying to generate some random posts. I'm going to show you guys that real quick. So this is just using Flickr to generate some random posts. So I'll go back, and then when we create, this is going to actually create a post for us with this generated post, right? So we're going to run our task. So remember, the run task function takes in a constant function that's going to trigger. So this constant function is this. So it's going to trigger this function every minute, right? And we're going to give us this initial response, right? So this is for the run blog cron. So we'll go down to the stop blog cron. So if you want to stop your, ideally, these are actually done like background processes. These are done on the background most times. You don't have to like create a separate APIs to handle this. So this is done for you, by your server. You just have to define a particular function in your constructor, perhaps, that stops functions based on criteria, and so on and so forth. So if you want to stop a cron, this is what you do. We already have an instance of the blog cron. So you just have to do blog cron to stop every minute task, right? So it's going to return you the status and then the message, right? So which is definitely your output to to the response. Great. We have an idea of how our API should work, and next now we should be able to test it out more practically. We're using a different approach. So I'm going to put that there, and now let's fetch our post. We don't have any. You can say that it's empty, right? So we can actually click on the run post cron, and yes, let me put my server on so we are really following this side by side. Okay, Windows, don't be funny. Okay, good. We can work with that. Great. All right, so this is our run post cron. So I can click on it, and then I want to bring up my timer. So we'll track, we'll make sure that nothing is actually, left out. So we can actually put the timer right here. Clock. Good, good. So meanwhile, I'm going to start the time. Immediately I click on the send button. So I'll do send timer start. So Cron has been initiated, but this will run when our timer counts down to 0. So we'll just actually sit back and take a look. And meanwhile, it doesn't need to be at the 0 count because we already have some seconds delay before I click on the button. Good, good, good. Great. Let's use this real quick. You can see that we're able to run, trigger this at the 0th minute. So what we're going to do now is we're going to check our post if that actually worked. To send it, we can see we have one post right here. So meanwhile, this is going to still run in the next minute if I don't stop it, right? But I can actually proceed to stop this particular cron by hitting this API. I can just click on send. So cron stopped successfully and it's not going to run continuously, right? So if I tend to click on send again to try to stop it, and meanwhile, at this stage, we've already cleared out the instance of the run task every minute. So if I click on send again, we're going to get an error because there is no instance anymore. So I click on send. So you can see, sorry, you don't have an active task for stop every minute task. So I think that basically wraps up the entire flow of how Cron works. You can actually take more look at the code implementation to see how it works. And yeah, feel free. Let me see if you have any questions. And peace.